Okay, good morning. Magandang umaga pong muli sa lahat. And it's almost unbelievable that we are now on the last Sunday of February after just almost still a memorable New Year's celebration. So this month we have been addressing the subject of male and female, the month that people remember romantic love. We want to establish our theology of male and female. We are not against romantic love as long as it is love that is between male and female and not any other kind of partnership. So this is going to be the conclusion of that. I have a very beautiful view, but it's not the it's not the slide. So well, anyway, you have your view here, so let us begin by doing a fast review of what we have considered thus far concerning the biblical position. Our biblical position is based on Genesis 1:27, which says that God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. So the origin of the male-female is at creation, and it still perpetuates by way of procreation, this time with human instrumentality. But this male and female creation means two things. First, that male and female are binary, that is, there are no other sexual identity other than male or female. There is no third sexual identity except male and female. And at the same time, we believe in the equality of male and female. And here, there are many false charges leveled against Christianity, which are not true, and we need to correct it. We believe the biblical position, the Orthodox position, is that Christians believe in the equality of man and woman, except that equality for us does not mean interchangeability. Two people can be equal and yet have different functions. And, in chess, I think I don't have, baka sa GMA ko nagamit. In chess, bishop and knight are equal in rank, but they move differently, and on various positions, you may prefer to have the knight or you may prefer to have the bishop, but they are equal, but they move differently. You cannot make the knight move the way a bishop moves, vice versa. Well, that's male and female. They have differences, but they are equal in value, and therefore, as far as we are concerned, there is the only possible sexual identity is either male or female. This biological sex and one's gender, but not a difference that makes the gender different from the biological sex. The gender should align. The gender, the way you act, the way you behave, the way you relate with people in a social construct must be aligned with what you are biologically. So that is what we have been arguing. We looked last Sunday at the masculine side of the binary gender. The masculine must be the gender of the male. And we will conclude with the female biological sex should be feminine in her gender. Now, I need to observe that because of the LGBTQ advocacy, it has blurred the distinctiveness of being female or woman. People can no longer answer very exactly and definitively what a woman is. It happened when the latest Supreme Court justice in the United States was having her hearing for appointment in the Senate, and she was asked straightforward question, can you define what a woman is? And she answered, no, I cannot. Can you imagine that? You can no longer define what a woman is because of this LGBTQ advocacy, or I call it insanity. Because of that, the sense of womanhood is lost. Is that a plus for women? No. If you have a high view of women, then failing to define what a woman is in terms of her sexual identity is definitely a denigration of women. So we cannot say that. A book that I would recommend is, again, Nancy Pearcey. I recommended a book of hers last week about the toxic war against masculinity. Another book, in fact, this is a book even before the book I recommended last week, is Love Thy Body. Every Christian should try to obtain this book. Not cheap, but if you buy it in ebook, you can afford it. If you have to buy the print, skip 3 meals and then buy it. But she says, we are witnessing an all-out war, not only on truth, but life, but also on reality itself. So she considers this a war by the LGBTQ advocacy movement to obliterate what womanhood is, what femininity is. So we are not dealing here with something just of a semantic definition. It is an attack against reality. That's how at least she feels this situation. I'll show you another book at the conclusion of this lecture. But what we learn here is that femininity can be socially pressured, but being truly feminine derives from mandated female roles. Yeah, it is true that there are ideas of femininity which are only social construction, social pressure. I mean, there's nothing in the Bible that says that if you're woman and you are to be feminine, you must play with dolls, and then if you're male and masculine, you must play with toy guns. I mean, there is nothing of that in the scriptures. These are social constructs. What we need is what the Bible says. A woman should be, what her roles are, and then we can construct a characterization of what a woman or what being feminine should be. So in this, let us begin by emphasizing that female difference from male prepares the woman for female roles and feminine qualities. So by defining the roles, many times it is something defined by feelings. In this present age, I feel I like to be a woman, I'm in the wrong body. Who told you you're in the wrong body? I mean, just because of your desires. What is adjustable? Your desire or your body? You adjust. If you have a desire for the same gender, then that is what you need to change. Not change your body. or change your definition of what you are when you are biologically defined. And this is where the reversal is happening. So we do not begin with feeling. Even children can have dysphoria. That is some blurred idea of what they are sexually. They think they would prefer to be a woman because perhaps, and this has been borne out by research, if your relationship with the parent of the same sex, that is a son to the father or the daughter to her mother, is defective, you will tend to have dysphoria of your sexual identity. So that is understandable for children. But now the advocacy of many in the West is, as early as possible, bring that child to a surgical change so he or she will not undergo puberty and in the process be a woman. And that is only self-deception. So science, as I've shown last week, has differences that are clear between male and female, not just the body, but the body because of our brain and chemical composition. Eh, meron tayong mga pagkakaiba. I told you I still have my 11 pages of differences between male and female. I have to be selective in what I choose. There is the fact that more estrogen, which is the hormone for bonding and nurture in women, and that fits her for bonding and nurturing roles and qualities. Like in the male, as we said last week, testosterone is the hormone that men have more. In fact, in adult males, we have 1,000% more of testosterone than female. And don't tell me that makes no difference, because that testosterone translates into something muscular and more of male roles. Now the same is true with women. They have more of estrogen for bonding and nurturing roles and qualities, and then her sexual cycle, the fact that she has monthly ovulation, which renders her fertile for bearing children. And here is something that you cannot just change. Only women are possible to be pregnant. There are now those who call those who are pregnant as pregnant people. Why don't just call them women? But just to go along the insanity of LGBTQ advocacy, the idea is that you can be a woman, that is trans woman, a man biologically, but a woman by choice. So you can be a woman and not be pregnant, and vice versa. And that is not true. Once you're a biological woman and your body is normal, you have your normal cycle, and that prepares you for home-oriented roles and infant caring. Now, let me make it clear, this does not limit the other areas of female usefulness outside the home. That is not the point. The point is that only women can bear children, and that fact should show that when women bear children, they should use their roles for the raising of children in the home. That is something that has happened for millennia until this century has totally reversed this issue. But we are not limiting women. Don't anybody charge Christianity of doing that. We understand history. I know history and the role women played in many areas of life, including science and politics and everything else. But that does not change the fact that when you have children, your primary role is going to be in the home without limiting your usefulness outside the home. So let us consider how women's or being feminine is misapplied because of certain misunderstanding or misapplication of what we know of the differences Christians can be guilty of this, and so can those who are not believers. What women are in this misapplication, they think that women is definitively domestic. And I'm using the word definitive here, not in the sense of certain. When you say, oh, I'm definite, that's saying I'm certain. But definitive is the adjective for definition. So when you say by definition, you can say definitive. And there are those whose definition of woman is just only, and I put in quotation the word only because that is contemptuous. To say only the home is because there's no one left in the home who should be caring for children that we are in a mess we're in. Kaya wag nating nilalang ang home, ang domestic responsibilities. But the idea that women are only good for the home, I already said that is not true. There is usefulness for women outside the home. Now, it is true that universally in human cultures, women are caretakers of the home because they are the ones who provide the milk for the child, and they are the ones who, by body makeup and by way of arrangement of nature, they take care of the child universally in human cultures. But it also suggests, as I've said, that word only suggests that there is contempt of household responsibility. And that misses the tremendous contribution that women make to society and to the world in general if they choose to be home carers, if they choose to manage the home, to be a housewife. That is not to be treated with contempt. Walang mababa sa pagiging may bahay. Isang napakataas na panawagan ito sa kababaihan. So there should be no such contempt. God, however, calls women to non-domestic service and usefulness. So this is now the second time I'm stressing this. Wag sanang mag-isip ang mga kababaihan dito na hanggang bahay lang at tanggalin mo yung lang kung ikaw ay nasa bahay. Mataas na panawagan yan. Pero ang katotohanan ng kasaysayan at ang katotohanan ng Biblia ay nagpapakita na tinatawag ng Diyos sa mga kababaihan sa mga gawain na makapagbibigay ng malaking ambag sa kasaysayan, sa kanyang kaharian, at sa maraming bagay. I give you just one example in the case of Esther. When Esther was able to do something in order to save the Jews, she risked herself by going to the presence of the king unsummoned. And in those days, in the Persian Empire, that could have meant death. If you are unsummoned because of the protocol, you do not appear before the king unsummoned. But Esther said, I will go to the king, though it is against the law. And here is the courage of the woman Esther. And if I perish, I perish. And you know the whole story of Esther, one of my favorite in the Bible, how she managed to save the Jews. And this is not domestic work, but doing that which risked her life for her countrymen. So there are many that I could cite in history, but this should be sufficient. Then there is the thought that walang magagalit sa akin na misapplication ng tawag ko riyan. Women are considered verbally vicious. That where men use their muscular strength and be violent, women, it is misunderstood, tend to use the tongue. That's the idea. Women talk, and boy, can they talk. But here. Why is that? Because we already saw in our study of differences between male and female brain has more verbal capacity than male. So sometimes male can take time to study language. Female has that capacity to study and to express in language what men may not be able to do so, that is in the early stage. Because of that, women can use their tongue both as strength and as weakness. So, magandang magamit ang ating tongue, that is our ability to talk. And ability to talk is a gift that can be used for the church, can be used for society, can be used for times of crisis. And again, I can tell you many who have used their ability to speak in a positive way. But just the same, the Bible also warns against the use of tongue by women that are in a way violent, not violent like men that destroys physically, but still violent in a way that is verbally vicious. So women have direct admonition about the misuse of tongue. In fact, I can only select one. There are many more verses I can use. But here is 1 Timothy 5:13 regarding the widows who are not well controlled. And these are young widows because women then were married in their teens. And the longevity of male was 40s. By the time the male died, wala pang antibiotic noon, you get infection, you're a dead man. So the life expectancy was in the 40s. So many male died with widows still in a very marriageable age, in their late 20s or early 30s. And Paul expects them to do that. But the problem is some of them, they learn to be idlers, going about from house to house, also gossips and busybodies, saying things what they ought not. Perhaps I should remind you, this is 1st century, though it sounds like 21st century. But this is the problem of women then and women now. And that can show in the house. The book of Proverbs has several warnings. It is better to live at the roof of the house than to live with a contentious woman. And then in another version of it, also in Proverbs, better to live in the desert than to live with a quarrelsome woman. So, of course, men can be guilty of the same. Men can be gossips. Men can be vicious in their verbal use, but there are specially directed admonitions to women precisely because that is their weakness. So you can object later. Verbally vicious. The third is sentimentally sensitive. Women are considered more emotional and therefore illogical. Men tend to see things logically and without realizing that the woman is coming from emotion. So that's why husbands don't win when there is an argument, because you are mystified that the woman has sources that you do not know about. But that's why somebody said, you must understand every word that a woman does not say. So she doesn't say it, but you are supposed to understand it, and you may go nuts doing that, but that is often the case. Sentimentally sensitive by brain structure, male is more analytical and female is more sensory. That's something we already considered in an earlier lecture, and that is true because of the differences in the limbic system, the hypothalamus, the amygdala. Now, some evolutionists will say male and female became that, therefore the roles were defined. I'd like to be a creationist and say God assigned them the roles, so He made them that in brain and structure. So in terms of pag nag-communicate yung dalawa na nag-aaway, so yung isa ay nagiging analytical, logical, and he may be right in his own mind, and the other is being sensory. I can sense something is wrong, and she may also be right, except that they are on a different plane and they don't meet until one should understand. Kaya madalas yung marinig sa akin sa pag nagkakasal, when there is a conflict, there are only two sides. One is right, the other is the husband. So the husband is always in the wrong. But then the male-female differences establish complementarity. Itong gusto kong sabihin, yung pagkakaiba, wag nating tingnan mas mababa yung isa. Even, and men tend to do this. This woman is very illogical. But you are very insensitive. That's the point. So, you never belittle the choice of a woman. Remember, it includes you. So that's why you cannot belittle it. Instead, consider it complementarity. Ibig sabihin, nagkakasangga o nagkakalapat ang babae at lalaki sa halip na nagko-contest, nagpapaligsahan. So, 1 Corinthians 11:11 is a good verse. Nevertheless, in the Lord, woman is not independent of man, nor man of woman. That's a very... in the ancient world, you will not hear that because women were chattels. That is, they were just properties. But here, in the first century letter of Paul, he establishes what already is in creation. Man is not independent. Man cannot live without the woman. The woman cannot live without the man. And that is therefore something we must reject. The sentimentally sensitive does not make the woman inferior, and the final misapplication is physically portrayed. Women are more oriented to physical appearance. That's the point. Either anyone to challenge that. But that is another direction that women tend to go unless restrained by nature or by grace. Women are more vainglorious about their physical looks. That's why for them, being beautiful is something that makes their day. The book of Proverbs has another statement that I'd rather not say here. But just read Proverbs 11:22. When society tends to affirm this, it objectifies the value of women in their sexual and physical attraction. That is something that society is guilty of. Consider even magazine covers. What will most likely land a cover on a magazine if it is a woman, unless we're dealing with issues of not really of society, but of a special sector like science and other things. But overall, society tends to objectify women in their sexual and physical attraction. And women, sadly, many women are sadly going along. That's where their vainglorious pride is stoked sa pagiging maganda. While beauty is not condemned, let me make that clear, nobody's saying that you are to be a hag. But it is given a lower value to character. In other words, there's a ladder, there's a priority. It's all right to be good as long as you also are of good character. Christians must show this priority of character over beauty. This is what is said of Sarah. Let your adorning be the inner person of the heart, the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. There's the word quiet again. Quiet spirit, it's beautiful for a woman. And above, in the previous verse about apparels, and then you can parallel here 1 Timothy 2:9, which again is about modest apparel and not expensive fashion. So there is a real biblical case for this sinful tendency of women to be vainglorious about physical appearance. But all of this are misapplications. So what should women be in terms of biblical femininity? All these female roles require feminine characters. That's why I'm stressing characters based on their roles. What role God has assigned to them? And I have three to say. First, they are equal partner with mankind. Magkapantay na katambal ng mga kalalakihan. Galatians 3:28 says, there is no male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Now let me just explain that. The no male nor female here is not denying sexual differences. It is about salvation by the grace of God, because that includes no slave nor free, nor any ethnicity, and then nor male nor female. What it is saying is that ethnicity, social status, and biological sexual identity, these do not matter when it comes to salvation by grace. We are all saved the same way. In fact, we can extend that by saying, in the matter of salvation by grace, sexual differences are not accounted, but so with creation, sin, and salvation. Male and female are equal partners in creation, in sin, and in salvation. Towards the late 20th century and 21st century, and also in the late 19th century, there came to be a discourse against the vices of men. And men were demoralized. Moralized means tinanggal yung morality nila. Instead of being the moral rulers of society and of the church, that was transferred to women. And men came to be considered naturally immoral, naturally vicious, naturally wrong. And that is something we need to correct. We are all sinners. We are equal in sin, in creation, in sin, and in salvation. So human society, and the Christian community in particular, the church, should demonstrate equality. We are equal here in the church. Women are not inferior, men are not superior, not vice versa. Now, that does not mean to say there is no difference of roles, but it means that in value before God, men and women are equal. There are some Reformed Christians who still have an ancient mindset that they still insist that male is superior to female. And I reject that, and we must reject that because that is unbiblical. So, when married, however, the woman should be the willing housewife in marriage. Not house husband, but the wife. Genesis 2:18, it was after 10 consecutive assessment by God of creation as being good. Suddenly in Genesis 2:18, something is not good. And what is not good? It is not good for man to be alone. And what did God do just to underscore the woman's role in the man. All the animals were paraded before Adam. God said, it is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helpmeet for him. And then all the animals were paraded. The conclusion was, there was no helpmeet among the animals. For animals, change, work. Your work should not be your helpmeet. Your job, your business should not be your helpmeet. Your laptop and video games should not be your helpmeet. God created the woman to be the helpmeet. Now let me explain this helpmeet idea, because this is often misunderstood. In 1 Timothy 5:14, when there is marriage, this is again about widows, bear children, manage their households, and give the adversary no accusation for slander. Slander, that is a bad testimony that the devil can use when it comes to women, is when they are not in the home, building it as the housewife. But here, the husband-wife roles are not determined pragmatically but biblically. So, wag natin sabihin, sinabi ko na last week, mas malaki kita nung babae, so siya na lang magtrabaho. Mas malaki ang darating sa household. Yung lalaki na ang sa bahay. Hindi naman siya, he can't breastfeed or do anything like that. And there is no woman or feminine bonding that the woman is naturally equipped with. So, nothing pragmatic of this sort. But let me just explain the excess of interpreting the woman as helpmeet na sa ibang translation sa Tagalog naging katulong at talagang ginawang katulong ang housewife. In Old Testament Hebrew, ezer, kenegdo, these are two Hebrew words. Helpmeet, one word is a wrong translation. It should be translated help corresponding. So, in the Old Testament, the word ezer is in fact used of God Himself. So you cannot argue that this is an inferior title if it is used of God Himself. In Psalm 121, verse 1, I look unto the hills from whence comes my help. So when the woman marries, however, she pledges to be the homemaker. That's the distinction of roles that is not interchangeable. So when you marry, you pledge to be the homemaker. Now, does that mean you cannot work outside the home? You can if you are able to make homemaking the primary sphere. Some women are able to do that, some can't. And you need to decide. And Proverbs 14:1 says, the wisest of women builds her house, but folly with her own hands tears it down. No, hindi ito yung literal house na yung babae ang magtatayo. Of course, construction work remains male-dominated as it should be. The Hebrew, let me explain again, makes woman the adjective. And we can translate this, womanly wisdom builds the house. So, ang karunungang pambabae ay para sa pagtatayo ng sambahayan. So, the absence of the mother is a big gap that cannot be filled just by the man. And then, finally, she is a gifted servant in ministry. And there are so many passages that tell us that. But 1 Timothy 2:11-15, however, put a limitation. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. And what follows is the attached reason is not cultural. There are those who will explain it culturally because the women in Ephesus were of a pugnacious type. So Paul had to give a temporary prohibition. Not true. The reasons attached by Paul is because of creation, because of the fall. So whatever the cultures may be, creation and fall bear upon womanhood. So women as well as men have both limited and broad opportunities for ministry. Hindi pwedeng sabihin ng babae na, teka muna, lugi yata ang babae na limitado sila. Kahit lalaki, limitado. Ibig sabihin, pag wala kang gift sa isang bagay, huwag kang maglingkod sa bagay na yon. Let's say writing, and women are better in writing based on brain structure than men. If a man does not have the gift of writing, he should not try because he might make a mess of it. And the same is true with even speaking. Some men cannot speak in public, and it's not sin that they cannot. It's just a matter of sovereign gift of God. So limitation is true to all, not just to women. However, here, both male and female believers are to serve according to their gifts, and women are clearly not for church official leadership. That is for pastors and deacons. That is a closed office. Those are closed offices for them. It's given to men. Just like in the household, men should lead, so in the household of God, men are to lead. So women have ample opportunities for ministry, especially in the home, but not limited to the home. And in the church, we have ample ministries for women. And women, I am thankful, are being used by God in our church in many ways through their gifts. But they do not need to become pastors or deacons in terms of offices. Paul advises the Philippian church, help these women, and he mentions the name of those women earlier, help these women who have labored side by side with me in the gospel. Paul could recognize women who labored in the gospel. They joined the missionary journey of Paul probably, and Paul recognizes their contribution. So let me just say, by way of final challenge of God's word, charm is deceitful and beauty is vain. The word vain here means short, brief. It's not saying that it's of no value, but it's brief. Your beauty may be traceable from between your teens or until what age, I will not put a ceiling, but it's brief. There had been celebrities known for their amazing beauty in their prime, and then as they aged, there is a certain direction to losing the beauty of prime. But a woman who fears the Lord, that will not be taken away. She should be praised. So the challenge is accept a special challenge to be women of influence. I close with that book I mentioned, the other reference that is good. It is a documentary, What is a Woman, by Matt Walsh. And in his concluding words, I have to read them all because they are so important. The question, what is a woman, is certainly about sex, gender, biology, social roles, and the like. Yet more profoundly, it is a question about identity. Where do we find our identity? How do we define ourselves? Is identity something we fulfill within the grand and ornate structure of nature, community, duties, and responsibilities, rooted in words like father, mother, son, daughter, friend, or child of God? Or is identity something we define for ourselves from within ourselves? Maybe happiness comes not from making the world affirm who we are, quote unquote, but by becoming who we were created to be. And I say amen to that. Happiness is be what you are created to be, not deceive yourself into becoming what you want to be that you are not. because it's a hopeless quest and a formula for not only unhappiness, but to militate against the purpose of God. Any question? Brother Ferdy.
Thank you po, Pastor, sa lesson natin. Ma-appreciate nyo talaga yung design ng Diyos, pagkalikha niya sa tao, babae man, o lalaki man o babae. Halimbawa na lang sa usapin ng leadership, so talagang whether ito sa home or in the church, so talagang akma yung mga lalaki, hindi naman para isang tabi o yung kakayanan ng mga babae. Pero ang tanong ko, Pastor, ay anong masasabi niyo sa isang wife na masyadong occupied ng marahil ng kanyang work, pero marahil may nane-neglect na siguro being a wife or a mother sa bahay, or so parang mas ang isip niya ay nasa work na lang, pero may napapabayaan siya na mahalagang tungkulin niya. So,
Well, she's not doing her primary calling. When you marry and you bear children, it's clear in 1 Timothy 5:14, your responsibility is to manage the house. That means you have your primary sphere in the house. Now, like I said, pwede bang magtrabaho outside? Pwede kung kaya niya na makapagtrabaho, pero ang primary attention pa rin niya ay sa kanyang sangbahayan. I know women who were able to do that, and I commend them for it. But in many cases, it becomes a choice that if she works outside the home, she will have to neglect of necessity of the work. She neglects the home, and she answers to God for that. She does not answer to God for having a work or no work outside. She answers to God for what happens in the home, because womanly wisdom, remember, builds the house. If she is not building the house while building her network and her trade and her business, that's not something that she can say she has done what God has called her to do. If she marries with children in formative stage, I said before, when the children are grown up, you can pick up on your career. But there's no rewind for training children. If you see your children grow up without the formative training of being godly or at least God-fearing, then there's no rewind. Whereas career, you can pick it up where you left it just to manage the home. And the husband should be sensitive na hindi naman sa may sweldo yung wife, kundi he should share his income with the wife. Doon naman nagiging insensitive ang husband na lahat ng yung bulk ng sweldo sa kanya, so yung pang bills lang ang ibibigay sa wife, hindi naman dapat yun. Appreciation of the wife's role means that you share, and I mean share, which means that includes what you can use for yourself. You have to limit so that you can share it with the wife. That's sensitivity on the part of the husband. Other thoughts? Questions? Ate Emma.
I don't know where I read a survey for women who are approximately 30 years old, highly educated. Walang difference between somebody brought up in a church or not a believer. They found out that given that choice, kahit na they are in the church, they would rather choose advancement in their career than choose to be married. So my question is, especially if they are in a church like this and they choose that kind of a path, are they committing sin? Because they know what they are designed for, but yet they choose another path, which is parang male na path yun, that you be successful career-wise because you are the breadwinner, and hindi nila pinili yung being the nurturing part of a partnership or a relationship. So, mali ba yun na choice? Kunwari Christian yung gumawa ng choice na yun.
Hindi po. It's not a sin to choose not to marry. To choose to be single is an option given to us by the scriptures in 1 Corinthians 7. And yet, the option is in order to spend your time to please the Lord. So, in other words, it's not because of career. Now, if the Lord gives you a career where you can serve Him through that career, fine. But it's not a choice between career versus home or marriage. Rather, it's marriage or a single life that is dedicated to the Lord. If that dedication takes you to a career, fine. If that dedication takes you to a church ministry, that's also fine. But it's the woman's choice not to marry. Hindi natin sinasabing kailangan mag-asawa. A woman may remain single all her life by choice or no choice. But ang ibig sabihin, hindi kasalanan na kung pinili ng babae na huwag mag-asawa at ibigay ang sarili niya sa gawain na anumang gawaing makapaglilingkod sa Panginoon, career or ministry, that's just fine. Vic?
Pastor, susundan.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Susundan ko siguro yung tanong ni Ate Emma. What if ang mga babae naman, ang ano naman niya is not to have children? Alam na tulad na nabanggit ninyo, I mean, kami nag-bear ng children. Naitanong ko po ito kasi sa pagtuturo ko ng nakaraang mga 10 taon, so kasi demography po yung tinuturo ko, tinatanong ko lagi sa estudyante, ilan ang nais mo maging anak? Kasi population studies po kasi supposedly, para maging stable ang population mo, dapat 2.1 lang ang maging anak ng bawat isa. Pero sa ngayon, ang Pilipinas, 1.9 na ang anak on the average. So we are below replacement level na sinasabi. So, naalarma ako, Pastor, sa kada semestre ng tanong ko sa mga bata, sa last 2 years, more than 50% of my students would answer 0. They don't want to have children. Pag tinanong mo, kahit babae ito o lalaki, pag tinanong mo ano ang dahilan, sabihin nila economic reasons. Napakahirap daw ng buhay ngayon. Yung iba, may iba pa, pero malimit, napakahirap daw ng buhay. Anong masasabi niyo po doon, Pastor?
Yeah, I'll stake my neck on this. If you marry, you should have children. Now, you may space your children or you may plant how many children, but you must have children because that is one purpose of marriage. Malachi 2 verse 15, did He not make them one? Is referring to man and woman being made one in marriage with a portion of the Spirit in their union. And what was the one God seeking? Godly offspring. So children are part of marriage. So, that's sinabi sa 1 Timothy 5:14. Marry and bear children. Now, whether bearing children means reproduction of her body or adoption from others, basta meron silang next generation. You're talking about the overpopulation In fact, China today is in a rush to repopulate their country because of the many years that they imposed a one-child policy, and now they realize the folly of it, that it is an aging society, that before they can be rich, all the major sector of the population are aged. Now they have removed the one-child policy. Naghahabol sila ngayon. You see, that's the danger when you intrude with the natural course. And in fact, before it's 2.4%, it's now 1.9%. It's less than before. In other words, we're learning to space, we're learning to plan, but to say that we only want to be husband and wife and have no children is missing one reason for the marriage. Unless when you got married, you already have children. And when you got married, having a child is not a possibility, so you adopt. But there are ways to have children for a new marriage. That should be one of the goals. So I'm staking my neck on that because I believe that to be the biblical, one biblical purpose for marriage. Ray.
Pastor, dun sa pagdating sa finances, especially kapag bagong kasal pa lang, binabalikan ko lang yung mga nakarampo. May mga makakaibigan na nagtatanong, etc. Paano po ba ang mas maganda or biblical na approach when it comes to that? If both of you are earning, yung iba po kasi ito, ikaw kuryente, ako tubig. Ikaw sa panganay, tuition fee, ako sa pangalawa, paano yung pangatlo? O di mag-apat na lang tayo anak. Hindi, joke lang po. So ano po yung yung biblical way of how you will divide po yung responsibilities when it comes to that?
Consultative but decided by the man. So you consult, and even if the woman is earning more, that does not make her the head. There should be consultation, and if the woman is better at money matters, the man should acknowledge that, and maybe at certain points leave it to the woman. Pero when it comes to the decision, it should be consultative but decided by the man to maintain his headship. But he should decide with sensitivity to the woman. So parehong nag-earn. Kung yung isang usual na situation then only the man is earning, he should be sensitive to share with the wife as much as he could, because as a matter of fact, the work of the wife is even more unrestricted than the man. The man perhaps works in an office or something that has a limit ng, let's say, 9 to 5. The woman is 24/7, and so hard work, I say, the woman has more hard work, and she deserves the share of the bounty of the man. Pero kung pareho nag-earn, yun, consultative, and the man should decide with sensitivity. So hindi nila sineseparate yung kanilang means because they are a partnership, and that includes the oneness of it. So hindi mo sasabihin, ikaw sa panganay, dalhin mo sa private school, ako sa pangalawa, sa public school ko. There's no manipulating sa finances. Yes, Jean.
Thank you, Pastor. I have two questions, but I don't know. You can just entertain the first. You mentioned that being a housewife there's dignity in it.
Yes.
In the context of a Christian home, where it's the house husband, it's the husband who is staying in the house. What would you say about it? Should it prolonged, like maybe it's for a temporary situation only, and then later on the husband should look for a job. And that is a very common situation among Filipino households, where women go for work overseas. So naiiwan talaga yung father. And then, yun yung second question, but you may answer later. What can you say about metrosexuals? Yung metrosexuals are heterosexuals, mga lalaki who put value, so much value on how they look and the way they prepare themselves. They would prepare, they're not homosexual, but they would spend time, like women, beautifying themselves. Thank you.
Okay, dun sa una na house husband. Only when it is an exigency, ibig sabihin, hindi niya ginusto, kundi let's say na lay off siya sa kanyang trabaho. So wala siyang trabaho not by choice but by the victim of circumstances. So pursado siyang nasa bahay, and meanwhile si wife ang may trabaho and she becomes the breadwinner. So only by exigency and temporary, or for a higher purpose. What higher purpose? I can tell you of men who spent time in the study in the seminary, and then later became useful. While in the seminary, of course, they were not earning, but the wife was the one earning. So it's like a soldier who goes to battle in war. So wala siyang anumang sa bahay contribution until he returns. Sometimes in ancient warfare, a siege will take years na wala siya. That's the case for the man. I will discourage a woman to go abroad and earn her living while leaving a house of children in formative stage. There have been studies on that, and the results are not good for the children. It may be good financially, but not good for children. I will dissuade, though I do not have the heart to discipline, but I will dissuade. And on the, what's the second? The Koreans. You want to say something, Becky? You might know better about K-pops.
Ano po, not on that po, pero I had a question kasi last week then po, it was mentioned, the dangers of not having a father in the household. Tapos it was mentioned then po today, the dangers of not having a mother in the household. Pero more often, especially on social media, we see more stories about fatherless households than motherless households. So I was wondering po, what are the dangers of not having a mother in the household compared to not having a father? Tsaka, why is it less common for us to hear about it than for the male counterpart?
Yeah, I'll answer that after I answer dun sa metrosexual. These are men who are heterosexual, not gay, and yet they have an excessive attention to their looks, and their looks sometimes are in terms of social comparison, something feminine. Well, to me, that is unmanly. If you are working, you should try, maybe I'll put it this way, compare the amount of time you spend in how you excel in your work as to how you look on the mirror. It goes both for men and women, but it is even more unnatural for men because they do the work, if they are married, they do the work and to be so obsessed with how you look to the point of na hindi ka na naiba sa mga kababaihan sa kanilang atensyon sa mga details. Ultimong kilay mo ay kinakailangang ayos na ayos at iba pa. That's, to me, I don't know, I belong to the old school where manliness does not care so much for, I believe in right grooming, but not obsessive attention to one's look. So, to Becky's question, why are there more fatherless households? Especially in the West, in the Black community, that is because that proves my point. Women are more by nature made to care for children. Men can, without conscience, leave their children. A woman can't. We hear sometimes, from time to time, women who leave their children somewhere to be picked up, and we cringe from that. We even heard of a woman who sold her child just to go on isabong. I mean, these are very heinous cases, and we rightly revolt against the very idea because it's a mother. God compared the way He cares for His people with a mother rather than with a father. He said, even a mother of a suckling child may forget, which is pretty much impossible, but God is saying, even that mother can forget, but I will not forget you. So why did He compare it to the mother? Because the mother will most naturally be with her child than the father. But it's bad to have a fatherless home, as criminality records in the United States show, where you have 13-15% of blacks. Yeah, I'm not being racist and looking at blacks down. No, I believe that blacks are just as valuable as whites. I follow Dr. Martin Luther King. We should be judged not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. But the fact of the records and statistics is there are more crimes done by the black community, accounting for more than 60% of crimes, yet they only are 13 to 15% of the population. Why? Because most of them are fatherless. Who said that? Obama, who was a black president, who was the first and only so far black president. So that should settle it. Last question, Johnny. May isa
I have the
pa.
mic,
So,
so-
Johnny, then Mers.
But I have two questions there related. First question, in 1 Timothy 3, in the qualifications of the deacon, in the middle, verse 11 says, their wives should be. There's a qualification for the wife. Does it imply that there should be an official role for the wife as well? And second question is related but broader. What leadership role can women have in the church?
Katuturo ko lang yan sa GMA. Last Thursday, palagay ko alam. Papasagot ko saan na kay Aiko, kay Ray. Narinig nila yung lecture. Women there, I believe, are women who function in the diaconal way, but do not have the diaconal office. So they can function, let's say, oversee financial matters. So they are doing a diaconal work, but they are not ordained into the office. That is why it is only the deacons who are followed by women. It should not be translated wives, but women, because gunaike is women, not necessarily wives. So women can function diaconally without having the office, which explains why there is no equivalent to the pastor, because women cannot function pastorally and not the office, but women can function diaconally, but cannot have the diaconal office. So you see my point, the women are put after the deacons, but there are no much of women after the pastors. If these are wives, pastors' wives in their qualifications should be even more stringent than deacons' wives. But here, only what after the deacon, it only follows after the deacons. So it's about diaconal functions without the diaconal office. Ano yung second? Leadership role. We do have leadership roles for women here. Leadership in sectors of ministries, like we have in the multimedia, in the benevolence work, and we can put women to lead certain ministries of the church. That does not make them leaders of the church. They cannot be leaders of the church, but they can lead ministries of the church. And last question, Merce.
Na-discuss po natin kanina, Pastor, na different po yung how yung men and women, how their brain are wired. So if may conflict po, both sides, like men are more aggressive and logical, but yung women are operating emotionally, paano po sila magmi-meet sa gitna? Sino po ang magpaparaya? Kasi both po silang hindi magkaintindihan dahil they are thinking in different, parang both end of spectrum. Parang ganun po.
Yeah, pareho dapat silang magparaya na hindi pwedeng i-impose ng lalaki. Akong leader, sumunod ka na lang. Leadership is not imposing on the conscience. This church's confession of faith ay may sinabi na God alone is Lord of the conscience. That includes the wife's conscience. The husband is not the Lord of the conscience of the wife. The wife may follow her Lord if she believes that this is where her Lord is directing her, and politely oppose her husband because this is a matter of sin for her, as she sees it. So, ang point ay, no, leadership of the husband is not despotism. The leadership of the husband is the leader who loves. Kaya nga, sinabi natin last week, lover, leader. Tanggalin mo yung isa ron, then it removes an important aspect of being a husband. Yung puro love na hindi makapag-lead, magiging sentimental lang. Yung puro lead, walang love, manunupil yan. It's despotism. So kung sino magparaya, there are times the husband ay dapat magparaya kung mga bagay sa bahay, anong kurtina, anong gamit sa kusina. Husbands, huwag ka na makipagtalo pag mga bagay sa sangbahayan. Huwag ka nang makipagtalo. Kung gusto niya ng ganitong palabas sa TV, kahit na may gusto kang iba, dahil maliban na lang kung championship game na, magkaroon ng pagkakaunawaan sa bagay na yon. Huwag nating isipin ang leadership ay panunupil. May sariling konsensya ang babae, pero bilang kumikilos ayon sa konsensya, she lives, she decides according to conscience. Her conscience should tell her that in matters that are not of issues of right and wrong, she should defer to her husband and be supportive. So that should settle that issue. So masunurin ako sa asawa ko kaya nagtaas ng kamay. Paano ako makakatanggi?
kahit kailan. Follow up lang doon sa sa tanong ni Johnny. Kasi medyo confusion lang, medyo nag-cause lang siguro ng confusion sa akin yun. Yung sinasabi nila na doon sa deacons may particular na binanggit yung wives, pero pagdating doon sa pastor wala. So parang ang pagka-explain ay because of that, yung deacons' wives ay parang, part of their duty. Yung, dahil sila ay tinukoy, unlike doon sa pastors. So, yun, yung parang kasama sila doon sa calling ng, yun yung pagka-explain sa akin. Kasama sila sa calling ng diaconate. So, kaya meron silang parang special privilege ba yun? Or something.
Okay, pakinggan mo ang aking analysis. Yung wife doon at nakatranslate sa King James Version should be translated as it is translated in the ESV as women. Hindi ito wives ng deacons. They are the women or female counterpart of deacons. So it's not the deacons' wives, but female counterpart of deacons who do diaconal functions, but they cannot have the diaconal office. Yeah. Dahil nga sa yung King James Version ay tinranslate itong wives, yan ang sinundan ng maraming interpreters na it refers to deacons' wives. They are not deacons' wives. They are female counterparts to deacons, meaning female women in the church can have diaconal work. For example, let's say, sorry to use Faye, she's doing financial matters, and Vic and Telly, they are doing financial matters which are diaconal issues, but they cannot have the diaconal office. But they are doing diaconal functions. Walang ganyan sa pastors because women are not allowed to do pastoral functions, even if they have the gift. So they neither have the function nor the office. Females can have the functions, but not the office of a deacon.
Special function.
Oh, wala. Hindi ito tumutukoy sa deacons' wives. Ito ay tumutukoy sa female counterparts ng deacons, hindi ng wives. Sa King James Version, pero sa other versions, mas accurate ang pagka-translate ng Gunaike ay women, not necessarily wives. So maitutulad mo ito sa Romans 16:1, Phoebe was called a diaconon, female, pero deacon in function, but not in office. So you are still right, but my points carry the day. So we will have to kay Tita Te, hindi rin ako makatanggi sa sige po.
Ang aking tanong ay noong natempt si Eve, ano ang nakita ng serpent o ng kaaway sa kanya? Sa kanyang karakter, sa mental, emotional, na ginawa na yun ang naging dahilan kung bakit nilapitan ng serpent si Eve instead na si Adam, na maaring hanggang ngayon yung ugali na yun o ng mga babae ay present pa ngayon, kaya medyo yun ay tanong ko hanggang ngayon dahil hindi ko masyadong maintindihan.
Yes, ang fault po doon ay kay Adam, hindi kay Eve. May kasalanan si Eve. And 1 Timothy 2:13 and 14 tell us that Eve was deceived. But that does not mean Adam did not sin. In fact, Adam had a greater sin. Anong nangyari? Pinuntahan ng serpent si Eve kahit nandoon si Adam. Adam was there all along. Huwag natin isipin na naiwan si Eve sa bahay habang pumasok sa office itong si Adam, at pag-uwi niya, nakain na yung forbidden fruit na i-share na lang sa kanya, nakahain na, hindi niya alam. Hindi ganun po ang nangyari. Ang nangyari, Genesis 3:7, and she gave to her husband who was with her. All along Adam was there, and he did not function as a husband should, which is to lead. If he functioned as a husband should, he should have blockaded any entry of the serpent to Eve. Pero hindi ko alam, baka takot siya sa ahas, sumakyat sa puno. But yun ang nag-default doon si Adam, malaking pagkakamali ni Adam. Kaya Adam was the one man, Romans 5:12 says, through one man, sin entered to the world, not one woman. It's through Adam. Adam is the greater sin, which renders the moral responsibility of the home to be the husbands more than the wives. Let's close in prayer. Dakila naming Diyos, sa aming mahabaging Ama, nagpapasalamat kami na mapag-usapan namin, matalakay ang tinuturo ng iyong salita sa usapin ng lalaki at babae, at naway tanggapin namin ang disenyo ng iyong salita na sa iyong paglalalang at kung paano mo ginawa ang lalaki at babae. Through reproduction, they bear offsprings who will be inflexibly male or female. At sa pinag-aralan namin ngayon tungkol sa mga kababaihan, maraming mga pagkakamali sa pag-aangkop ng pagiging babae sa aming panahon. Nawa ay isaalang-alang namin ang tunay na gawain ng kababaihan at ng mga kababaihan namin dito. We pray for our sisters here that they may accept the role that is given to them according to the gifts that they have, according to the calling that you have extended to them, and make of them excellent women in their various roles, the wives, and those who have their careers, and those who choose to be single. We pray that each may find her niche in a way that will seek to please you and excel in their service to you. Be with us to be a counterculture to much of the direction of the world in maintaining the binary creation of mankind as male and female in the image of God. We pray all these things in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.